welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and today we have another From Lazy Gaming Guy. Scott, welcome back to the co-host chair.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
We have a ton of Nintendo news, which I know you're very excited to jump into. But to anyone who is new and just joining the Brokehead Core, the way we format the show is we go through a block of news, usually what happened in the last week or the last couple of days. And then once a month, we do what's new on HBO Max and what's new on Netflix. This week, we're doing HBO Max. Next week, we will do Netflix. And then we cap it off with the Brokehead block, which is what Scott and I have been doing this week, the more personal side of the podcast where you get to know us both a little bit better. So let's start off with this week's news. In an interview with Radio Times, No Time to Die star Daniel Craig expressed that he doesn't think a woman should play the role of James Bond. So that was the headline, got plenty of clicks, it did its job, it worked on me. I went on there. His quote, what did he say exactly? He said, quote, "There should simply be better parts for women and actors of color. Why should a woman play James Bond when there should be a part just as good as James Bond for a woman?" End quote. Where do you sit on this one, Scott?
I do understand kind of his message on that, where it's instead of just gender bending a character, that there should just be another character that is a super spy and stuff like that, that's also just a female. You know, it's not James Bond, but it's James Bond-esque. It's just as powerful, just as, suspenseful of a thriller, but with a female main character. Also, to me, though, I never really cared if James Bond was a female. Because to me, James Bond was always the code name. It was never the actual character. Much like, with Spider-Man, it's not, if there's a female Spider-Man, it's like, well, that's not a female Peter Parker. That's a female Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a mantle or a title, not necessarily the character.
That was one of the things that brought me back to when they first did Miles Morales many years ago, and they were saying they killed off Peter Parker and they're making him black. And I had to be like, no, Peter Parker is dead, but in the Ultimate Universe, real Peter Parker, main canon Peter Parker, is still alive. In the Ultimate Universe, half the mutants are dead and they did their own thing. That's its own continuity. And Miles is a completely different character who's half black, half Puerto Rican. And it was just funny how the misconception kept coming up, like, they're making Peter black. That's not what's happening.
It was always a big thing. And then it's like, when you really dug into it, it's like, no, they're making Spider-Man half black, half Puerto Rican. It's like, but Spider-Man's, again, the title. The character is actually Miles Morales. Like, that's a whole different character. Just like Gwen being Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, however you want to know her. But it's like, that's Gwen Stacy. That's not Peter Parker. They didn't make a female Peter Parker.
Right.
It's Gwen Stacy.
Even in this iteration of Bond movies, there was Moneypenny, who was running around as an agent as well. She's the one who takes the shot and accidentally nails Daniel Craig, and that's when he takes a bunch of time off. He gets himself back together. I think it was Skyfall in which that happens. So they have already made an effort to make female agents that are cool and they can do all of these things. And for him to say this, I think it kills a lot of the rumors that in this film, in this upcoming one, comes out in 2 weeks, he was going to be replaced by another Bond or a female Bond or whatever it may be, female agent. And I don't know how they're going to really handle it. We'll find out when that comes out. But I do think that so far it looks like the plan, I think, is going to remain as a male Bond. Now, I can see this maybe being a person of color in the next iteration, but I think it will so far remain as a male Bond.
Yeah, I'm thinking that based on all of this, it most likely will be. To your point, it may be a person of color, or you might have the first gay Bond, or something of that nature. But I think they're wanting to keep the character as a male character.
And something else that does support this, back in 2018, James Bond producer Barbara Broccoli addressed this issue through a Variety roundtable event. With a name like Broccoli, she must be a Saiyan. There's no way she isn't.
No, she's got Saiyan blood going through that.
She said, quote, Bond is male. He's a male character. He was written as a male, and I think he'll probably stay as a male, and that's fine. We don't have to turn male characters into women. Let's just create more female characters and make the story fit those female characters, end quote. So they seem pretty set on this is where we have guidelines on what James Bond is. They have a certain brand that they want to maintain, and that's the way they're keeping him. Now, they have modernized them, especially with Daniel Craig, in which they made him an alcoholic. They made him more rough around the edges, not as smooth around, but he can still talk to women, seduce women, whatever. He is not a good person is how they did, how they modernized this one. And I think that's okay. They don't have him so locked in where the character can't be different from other iterations, but at the same time, it sounds like they have their checklist.
Yeah, it's very much to your point, it's loose enough that you can have modern adaptations and kind of make each Bond feel different because of that situation. But they also have, no, it can't be this, it can't be that. It has to do Bond has to be this type of character, but you're free reign within that. Kind of like the powers of a superhero. They have to have these powers, but beyond that, you can have free reign with their actual personality or things that they may or may not do.
And it does sound like this movie is going to be the last one for Daniel Craig before they end up doing a new Bond. He's definitely getting up there in age, so it sounds like it's about around that time. Someone else that is going to be a lead to, I think, what is going to be a pretty big movie for Sony is Venom 2 and Woody Harrelson, who revealed that he was hesitant on voicing Carnage in the sequel. He said, quote, "There was a lot of discussion about the voice and also discussions with Tom Hardy, but obviously with Andy Serkis, who directed it. And I just kept messing with the voice, and I was thinking to myself, who's going to know the difference if Andy Serkis did the voice, who's a master of voices? Why don't you do it, Andy? And no, he was insistent that I do it. But I like how it churned. Obviously, effects are put in the voice, but I really like how it all turned out." End quote. Tom Hardy ended up doing the voice of Venom in the first movie, and then sounds like Woody Harrelson will be doing it for Venom 2 as well. I just thought that was kind of interesting that he wasn't really all about doing the voices as well. I don't know if he just doesn't have experience in voice acting, but I'm glad that Andy was able to convince him because there's something more dynamic about both of the characters, the lead and the villain, voicing each other as the symbiotes as well.
Yeah, I will agree. It does add like an extra layer, essentially, because the symbiotes are just them. Like they take over a host body. So it does add that kind of layer to have the actors doing the voice as well. And I think it worked well for Venom, so I'm sure it'll work well for Carnage.
The movie, by the time this episode releases, has come out and it's released. Is this one that you're going to go into theaters to check out or maybe eventually check out on streaming?
I'll probably check it out on streaming at some point. I still haven't actually watched Venom. It's one of those movies that I'll get around to it at some point, but it's not currently on any streaming services that I know of. So when that shows up, I'll probably end up watching that, and same with Carnage.
I'm pretty excited for Venom 2. I've got my tickets. I will have a review next week along with someone else that has seen the movie, one of the co-hosts, so we'll figure that out next week. But there will be a spoiler review coming out next week, so prepare for that. Some comic book news. Actually, this is more industry news. It's pretty big on pop culture. And you may have seen it on Twitter, on comicbook.com. It was kind of all over the place for a day, and then it kind of died down until more things happen with this case. The families of creators of Marvel Comics characters such as Spider-Man, Thor, and Black Widow are involved in a legal dispute with Disney for copyright ownership. In response, Disney has filed a series of countersuits alleging that all the characters in question were created under work-for-hire contracts, meaning that under the technicalities of current copyright law, the creators of the work could potentially have no claim of ownership over their creations. On September 24th, Larry Lieber, who is the co-creator of Iron Man, Thor, and Ant-Man, he's also Stan Lee's brother, was joined in this lawsuit against Disney by the estate of late artist Steve Ditko, who's the co-creator of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, also the estate of artist Don Heck, co-creator of Black Widow and Hawkeye, the heirs of writer Don Rico for co-creating Black Widow, and the heirs of artist Gene Colan, who co-created Blade, Falcon, and Carol Danvers. They're all represented by attorney Mark Toberoff. So the reason why this came out now and not anytime sooner or later is the provisions of the collective lawsuits assert that the ownership over the characters in question should revert to their named creators 60 years after their creation under the Copyright Revision Act of 1976. So there's two timetables at play here. There's the ones that it seems like they're filing this lawsuit under that old copyright of 1976, where at the time that they created these characters, it fell under there. And then Disney's going for the current law, which would fall under, if they were to create these characters now, it would fall under work for hire, which makes Disney the owners of the characters. So characters like Spider-Gwen right now, anyone making a character for Marvel Disney, it belongs to the company, not to the co-creators. And whether or not they get residuals, that's based on each individual's contract and how good or bad their particular agent is. But a lot of people panicked over this because they're saying that if it goes to the estates, that we will see no more Spider-Man, Thor, Black Widow, any of these characters, that they will fully stop, which is a theoretical possibility. But I think in reality, I don't know if you kind of came to the same conclusion on this one, Scott, but I think what they're looking for is a cash settlement, or even if they retain ownership, they would then turn around and just resell it back to Disney.
I would be basically of the same belief on that one, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I don't think it would mean the end for those characters. Maybe certain ones that they're like, all right, we're already done with this story or this story. I think for most of those, it would be like, oh yeah, no. We'll either, to your point, do a cash settlement, or go, okay, well, we'll buy back the rights to specific characters. Like, okay, we need Captain America back or Iron Man, but you can keep Ant-Man. We don't really care. Like they might do it for some of the smaller ones, just be like, screw it, don't care. But
Right.
To your point, no. Like the bigger ones, they're going to find some way. Like there is going to still be, because money talks.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the estate's not going to do anything with it, then there's obviously, okay, well, then they're losing out on money too. So they're both sides are going for money. So you're not going to, this will not be the end of these characters, no matter which side wins, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so either. Let's say the estate wins and they get all the copyright characters. It's not like they're going to turn around and they're like, let's make a publishing company and a film division and we're going to put out our own. That's never going to happen. And to anyone saying they should win it and sell it off to Image or DC Comics, I don't think that's going to happen either. As crazy as that would be, I don't think they have the money right now.
To your point, I don't think that would be a possibility. I think that it would just either be them getting it and selling it back, or maybe getting half rights or something, so where they get residuals or a portion of ticket sales or whatever it is. There will be something. They will come to some agreement no matter which side wins, I'm sure. Well, I guess technically if the copyright holder side, because I'm sure the Disney side will not end up with anything, or money will not be exchanging hands if the Disney side wins. I'm sure of that. But I'm sure the other side is going to be looking for money, and if they win, because if not, there's no point to arguing for these characters back. If you're not going to then make some money off of these characters, if you're just going to hide them away afterwards and be like, nope.
Right, and if they win, that's fully their right to do so. But that we know that's not what's going to happen. And
No.
if anything, something that people pointed out was interesting is the same attorney, Mark Toberoff, also represented Siegel in the fight against Superman, or the family of Siegel for Superman, and ended up losing to Warner Brothers. And I don't know what agreement they came to, but now they have this special in every credits page or any movie or TV show. It'll say with special arrangements from the Siegel family. Obviously, this guy specializes in this in some format, and I think something like that will.
Exact same type thing. Where now at the end of an MCU movie, that's what you're going to see if it involved any of the characters that were in question. And maybe that's indicating that it's also giving a portion of the money to the family, from a ticket sales or something like that, or maybe per movie basis. They just go, okay, you get $5 million per movie or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it will not mean the end of these characters. I can say that with confidence.
Yeah.
No matter which side wins, it will not mean the end for these characters. That's jumping the gun way too much.
And one of the only reason I even gave like, I mean, it's obviously huge comic news, but the main reason I saw like it blowing up is on Twitter, the same people that are about let's support the creators, let's support the people who created these characters and the current comic industry, and we want to make sure everyone's taken care of. But then as soon as like their entertainment is in question to be doomed or whatever, then they're like, no, fuck that. we need to we need to retain these characters. I need to see my Spider-Man movie. It's just
Like, you will see your Spider-Man movie, period.
yeah.
Like, I promise you, you will see your Spider-Man movie, period. Like, your Black Widow movie, maybe not. But, you may not see a sequel to that, but Spider-Man, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, they're going to. There's no question on that.
Let's see how all of this shakes out over the next year and what kind of progress or agreement they end up coming to, no matter which side it is. We will cover it here in a future episode. Now, the big chunk of today's episode is going to involve the September 23rd Nintendo Direct, which at first it was like, all right, we're going to announce the winter and fall games and we're going to showcase those, and ended up being a much bigger deal than that, which is kind of nice because it gave everyone a nice surprise. It pretty much made it so that it was a positive Nintendo Direct, and I know you're really excited about going through these, and if I missed any of these, feel free to drop in any information that I have on this list, but I did make sure to get the big hitters on here. So the first one is there's a new membership plan that's coming to the Nintendo Switch Online in late October with classic N64 and Sega Genesis games. I'm sure eventually we'll get Saturn. But what's the lineup looking on with N64 and Genesis?
So the lineup's looking great, especially for the N64. I mean, you're talking about hard-hitting games like Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Sin and Punishment, which is actually, fun fact, the first time that's ever been available in the West. That was originally an exclusive for the N64. We got the sequel for the Wii, but never the original. So that's a really nice one to finally get. Dr. Mario 64, one I never really played a whole lot of. Mario Tennis 64, Win Back, which I don't know who was asking for that. And then Yoshi's Story, which, again, is another really iconic N64 game. And it should also be noted that coming shortly after, relatively soon from the way they were talking, are games like Majora's Mask, Kirby 64, the original Smash Brothers, I believe, was on there as well, and a few others that will be releasing over time on there. So they're really trying to make it like the definitive N64 collection. And I'm super happy about that. A lot of those games are my childhood.
It seems like this is their answer to the Virtual Console in a way where before they did $9.99 for N64 games, I think it was, and you can kind of purchase each one, but now it's all included with your new membership for Nintendo Switch Online. Aside from adding these games, is there something else that they changed, the price increase or anything?
So they said that it will be a price increase, like it'll be an optional purchase, kind of like the Xbox Live with Game Pass, where it's you have Xbox Live and then Game Pass with Game Pass. So there'll be two options from what we could tell, but they haven't announced the price of it or any of other information. They said that would come in a later Nintendo Direct, hopefully soon, since it comes out late October. So, and we're going to be going into October.
The big hitter from this list, obviously, for me is Star Fox 64. I had just posted the old Nintendo Power article of like, this is what's coming to the Nintendo 64. We got Star Fox, and it still remains as one of my top 5 video games of all time. So that is a huge positive, and I'm glad that it made the initial list of games.
Yeah. And then we also have the Genesis list of games with such games as Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is pretty much considered one of the best of the 3 Genesis games. It's normally between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, and I think most people lean towards 2. Streets of Rage 2, great game. Echo the Dolphin, Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hard Corps, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, which is really nice to see on there. Musha, never heard of that one.
Yeah, me neither.
Fantasy Star 4, Ristar, Shining Force, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, and Strider, which I loved Strider back in the day.
I only knew of Strider because of the first Marvel vs. Capcom. Is that the same Strider?
It's where I was introduced to him as well, but I played a lot. When I eventually got my Genesis, I played quite a bit. I used to rent it occasionally. It was just a lot of fun.
It sounds like I missed out on Sonic 2, and that's the one I didn't own. I had Sonic 1, I had Sonic 3, and Knuckles, but Sonic 2, I don't know why I never ended up asking for it for Christmas or for my birthday or anything like that. So it sounds like it is the best one. I really like 3 a lot, and I like Knuckles because you get to play as Knuckles, and he was awesome in Sonic 3, a villain up until the very end. So I maybe I should find a way to play Sonic 2 at some point.
It's on pretty much every game console known to man at this point. So, which it is weird that we're not getting Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and Knuckles on Genesis. I'm sure 1 and 3 and Knuckles is coming at some point. I can't believe that they wouldn't. But it is nice to have a variety as well. You know, it's got kind of lesser known games like Gunstar Heroes is kind of a cult following, but not really known much outside of that. Golden Axe is a really fun beat 'em up. Same with Streets of Rage 2. You've got the Castlevania Bloodlines. Really nice Castlevania game.
Did they specify whether or not this is going to be a rotation of games, like they'll take them out and put other ones in, or are they just adding to the library?
So if we're going by, because all we can do is go by what we know for the NES and SNES ones that are already the subscription service, which is that they do not rotate. They are permanent. Once they are on there, they are on there.
Okay.
So it is just expanding library and not a rotating library.
And the NES and Super NES one currently is on its own separate plan as well, or is that?
It's just included when you buy online play for a year, which is $20 for the entire year. You get to be able to play online with the Switch, and you can also play the NES and SNES library that's on there.
I was going to say that alone, they could probably sell as a separate pass, but it sounds like they're moving in that direction with the additional consoles, N64 and the Genesis. So now they're adding on to that pricing, which they can absolutely get away with. Because I think for most people, if you're already buying the online pass, you might as well upgrade and get the library of over 20 games and counting.
Yeah. And I'm predicting personally that it's probably going to be $10 added on and make it 30 for the year. Because that would probably be a pretty fair amount, but it could also go up to 40 for the year, and I don't think most people would bat an eye, considering you're paying 60 to 80 for like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live. I mean, people are already used to paying a lot more for an online service. So by adding the extra 2 game consoles plus their growing library, I think is going to be, they could get away with $40 for the year and still sell it like crazy.
Something else coming to Nintendo Switch Online members is the actual controller. So immediately, I'm sure people were asking, all right, well, how am I going to play these? Am I defaulted to whatever the Switch comes with? But you can pre-order the 2 new controllers that do resemble the original N64 and Sega Genesis controller. So you can play them classic style. I did read that the Genesis controller will not be the 6-button configuration when it comes to North America. That one's exclusive to Japan, but it'll be the 3-button configuration from what I read. Is that true?
I'm not sure on that one, because the one they showed off was the 6-button, but at the same time, they probably just didn't make 2 directs. So
yeah,
it's kind of I'm not definitive on that one. If so, you can import. It's just a controller, so it's region free. So I'd recommend probably going for the 6-button Genesis controller. I do also like that they are both wireless. Yes. So it is a wireless N64 and a wireless Genesis controller that are also, I think, slightly modified so that they have like the home button and things of that nature to help out with being on Switch.
Are you going to upgrade the controllers to be able to play classic style, or are you one of those where you're like, I'm okay playing with what I have?
It depends. Part of me really wants the N64 one. I think with the Genesis, I'll just play with what I've got. I could even potentially use my Super Nintendo one to play the Genesis, since that'll have the 6-button configuration. But the N64 one is super tempting because it'd be really fun to play something like Star Fox 64 or even the old Smash or Kirby 64 with an actual N64 controller in my hands again.
That's one game that I have. It's like riding a bicycle. If I were to pick up an N64 controller and start playing Star Fox, it's easy for me. Like I remember the exact type of pressure it would need to go up or down or whatever. So if I were to go this route eventually and get the online pass just to play Star Fox 64, let's be honest, I would pay $40 to $60 if I want to play Star Fox 64, since that's the only way I can really play it. Unless I can, I mean, I think I can track down my Wii, and if I haven't traded it in, and see if I still have it downloaded on there. But otherwise, it seems like I mean, it's a great idea. You want to get that extra bit of income from the controllers, and even if these end up being, they will be pricey because they're Nintendo first party. Other companies are already, I'm positive, looking at, okay, how do we build our own third party N64 or Genesis controller to have right there at Target or Walmart or whatever there, where people can grab them up as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think people were estimating about 50 to $60 for the controllers.
That sounds about right.
So, and it should also be noted that some of these games for the N64 and stuff do have online multiplayer now.
Oh,
So
even
something like
Smash
Star Fox
Brothers?
64 has online multiplayer or will have online multiplayer.
That's great.
So that'll be really cool. One game I'm hoping for is GoldenEye, because they are getting Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were announced for like the later dates. So it looks like they're working with Rare. So it'd be really nice to get GoldenEye.
There is hope.
And with online multiplayer GoldenEye, that would be just like a childhood dream come true. Like to play GoldenEye again with my friends would just be really fun and so nostalgic.
With the way that Microsoft and Nintendo have been playing nice with each other over the last couple of years, it sounds like that's more feasible now than ever, which is great.
Yeah, I think at that point it just depends on the license for 007 and GoldenEye.
That's true. Yeah.
Because that's the only thing, is that unlike something like Banjo-Kazooie, they don't have to work with just Rare. They have to work with Rare and the estate or whoever has copyright control of 007 and GoldenEye.
So what ended up being the surprise first-party game that didn't end up... I think it surprised everyone. We didn't get any hints of it. At least I didn't see any.
I know Kirby. Well, Kirby unfortunately got spoiled.
Oh, okay. Did it?
For the conference started?
Yeah.
Because Nintendo of Hong Kong or Japan posted the tweet early by accident. Or no, they posted on their website. Sorry. They posted up the picture on their website of it and then quickly removed it. But in the age of the internet, there were screenshots. But watching the trailer, it looks really fun. It's a completely 3D Kirby game, which we haven't really gotten an actual 3D Kirby game. Closest we've gotten are things like Kirby 64 back in the day, or even some of the newer ones kind of have that pseudo 3D, and where it's more 3D environments, but not quite walking around in 3D like this one looks to be. And it looks great. I loved the dystopian future with the happy-go-lucky music playing in the background.
Yeah, it was a little creepy seeing like the empty mall and Kirby running around in the overgrown world. I want to know what the story is. It's titled Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So he probably travels somewhere and discovers a part of the world or a galaxy that apparently used to have life on it.
Well, see, what's kind of interesting to me, at least while watching it, and I could be completely wrong on this, but that mall very much reminded me of the mall that you go to in Kirby 64.
Okay.
So I'm curious if maybe this is some kind of pseudo sequel to Kirby 64. That would be kind of a neat concept.
It sounds like it, and it has... Kirby brings back the copy abilities from previous games. It is currently set to release spring of next year, so it's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I will be pre-ordering it, picking it up day one. Like, it's definitely one of those games I was super hyped about as a Kirby fan.
The one that was a highlight to me out of this entire direct was Bayonetta 3, A new trailer showed off gameplay for the very first time. There's also a new look to Bayonetta, new mechanics, including the ability for Bayonetta to directly control demons. This one is set to come out sometime next year.
It seems I'm unfashionably late, but I'm ready to give you everything you want.
It was a big surprise to finally see some gameplay from that one and get more of a slightly more concrete launch date, since it's just sometime next year, but at least we know the year. Because it's been, I think, 3 years since Bayonetta 3 was first teased. And this was the first time we actually saw, like, there is a game there. There is gameplay. There is more than just a teaser, more than just a pre-rendered trailer. There is an actual gameplay. And it looks great. It looks fun. It's exciting. Bayonetta's always been kind of one of those really interesting games. And I'm super excited to play the third one.
First and the second one were so much fun to me. The soundtrack is amazing. The gameplay is great. Some of the most fun I had on the Wii U, wasn't it? They both released on?
So Bayonetta originally released on PS3 and 360.
Okay.
And then it was actually never going to get a sequel. And Nintendo approached them saying, like, we want a sequel to this game. So Nintendo funded Bayonetta 2, and that was a Wii U exclusive. And they also ported Bayonetta 1 that came as a bundle free with Bayonetta 2.
That's how I played it, yeah.
Which they added some like Nintendo costumes and stuff like that, which was really cool. And then, yeah, they ported now both to the Switch, so you can play them on current hardware, and you'll be able to play the entire trilogy in one go, like on the same system, which is really nice.
Now, this is a character that in the past was kind of controversial over the sexual nature of her attacks and just the design of the character. From the looks of Bayonetta 3, it seems like they 2021 her, if that makes any sense, where she's not quite as provocative. Did you get that same sense from it?
There's definitely a sense that, to your point, she's not as provocative as she once was. But I think they kept enough of it there that you still get the feeling of the character, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely, there's a noticeable difference from Bayonetta 1 to Bayonetta 3.
The only thing I'm chalking it up to as far as like a little bit of hope, and this isn't me going, I want to see her nude, but it's like I want to see the same character that I saw in the first two, which, you know, I played that game with Kelly and she was perfectly fine with like, no, she's what, and this is how a lot of gamers looked at her. She's powerful in her nature, whatever it may be. And that's how they're not going to gain new fans by making her less provocative in Bayonetta 3. So to me, it wouldn't make sense. And I think that the only reason why maybe they showed off the more tame parts of the game is because it wasn't a Nintendo Direct where they know kids are probably going to be watching. So they're like, let's show off some of the other parts, the action
stuff. It's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, clearly. But I'm sure that she's still going to be kind of the sexual character that she has been, because even Bayonetta 2 had that as well.
Oh yeah.
It was tamer than Bayonetta 1 as far as like what you could see and stuff, but it was still very much like, yeah, this game is M for a reason. It is not for children. And it still felt very Bayonetta.
I'm glad you shared the developer diaries or whatever they were talking about with.
Yeah, there's some great content that they're old developer diaries. They're actually from Bayonetta 2.
Okay.
But some great content in that.
If you get a chance to look them up, look up Bayonetta Developer Diaries, and Scott and I were laughing about them along with the rest of the internet. It really became meme material. Like that shit will be, you're going to see that for the next couple of months.
Oh yeah. Like the dude just like glancing over while the guy's drawing the designs of Bayonetta going like, like just make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's sexy right
Draw
there.
Sexier. It's great. The developers have fun with that game.
Yeah, they really do. You're going to have to help me out with this next one, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. So apparently this is an expansion that includes newly added stories, locales, monsters. What are we looking at here?
So I didn't see exactly which monsters are going to be, and I don't know 100% of the older monsters because a lot of them are returning legacy monsters most of the time. and I don't know a lot of them. Monster Hunter World, the kind of previous one before this one, was my first Monster Hunter. Well,
Mhm.
the first one I got into. I played the very original on PS2 and sucked and returned it back to Blockbuster. So I don't know a whole lot of them, but it looks like, if you're a legacy Monster Hunter fan, you're going to have some fun with that. If not, there are some new ones as well that look fun to hunt. Rise is one of those that to me is very interesting in the Monster Hunter community because they tried to appeal more towards the older fans with Rise, but with some of the gameplay features that were in World, it's kind of interesting to also see that philosophy with the monster choices, where you have some new, some returning legacy monsters as little nods. But yeah, it'll be fun expansion. I don't remember if they announced the price of the expansion at all, but when it comes out in summer 2022, if you've been having fun with Rise, I highly recommend picking up the expansions. They're always worth it because, and the last one, big one, was Iceborne, and that was whole new areas, a bunch of new monsters, and quite a bit more story. You'll always get your bang for your buck at Monster Hunter.
Another announcement during this direct was Splatoon 3. The next game in the series features new and returning stages and 4 versus 4 battles, as well as new weapons never before seen in any of the previous Splatoon games, set for, again, sometime next year, no specific quarter or anything. Splatoon is not a franchise that really caught my attention. I get that it's big on multiplayer, and that's kind of the whole idea of it, but I'm a little bit past competitive multiplayer games at my age.
Yeah, I'm very much the same way. Like, I love the art style and aesthetics of Splatoon, always have since the first game, and kind of the punk rock feel, and even the soundtracks have always been really good, but it's never been something I've actually actively played. I played the original Splatoon. It was okay, but to your point, it's a very competitive multiplayer game. That is, it's bread and butter. There is a story mode, but it's bread and butter, and what's going to keep you playing the game is the multiplayer. The story mode, at least for 1 and 2, were maybe like 4 hours long, so you're not talking quite worth a $60 game if that's all you're going for. But man, if you're going to play that multiplayer and love it, it's super worth it. And it looks like Splatoon 3 is really kind of enhancing that multiplayer and trying to add some fun new features that make it look a lot more fun. And it looks like they also have kind of expanded that story as well to make it a longer experience and kind of make it more worth the money.
They're also doing a Splatoon manga still, so if you're into the game, the aesthetics, the lore, make sure to check out the manga as well. One that was kind of a pleasant surprise for me because I didn't even know they were working on this, and I saw the gameplay and it looks like a Mario Kart clone, which is perfectly fine with me, is Chocobo GP. You race as Final Fantasy characters using things like Chocobo and Gilgamesh, and then you have character abilities. You've got basically the item blocks that are in the game, and it plays like the current iterations of Mario Kart. It's set to come out sometime next year.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited for this one because the original Chocobo Chocobo Racing was on PS1, and I never got a chance to play it. But I've seen so much about it, and it looked so fun, and it's kind of a pricier game nowadays, and since it was never re-released on anything. So to finally have this coming to the Switch was like a dream come true in that, because it does look like Mario Kart just with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Just I'm asking for. That's how Crash Bandicoot was with Crash Team Racing. It's like, yeah, it's mostly just Mario Kart or a kart racer with these characters. And Final Fantasy has quite a few characters to choose from. Quite a bit of different magics and weapons that you could use for the items. It just looks like so much fun to play. Like, so much fun. I'm really looking forward to kind of screwing around with friends like I do in Mario Kart, just with Final Fantasy characters.
I hope you guys stream it on your channel. It looks like a ton of fun. From the trailer and from anything else I've seen, they didn't announce human characters for this game, right? We're not going to see someone like Cloud or Sephiroth?
I don't believe so. I mean, you'll see some slightly human characters like Gilgamesh, but not. I don't think you're going to see any of the title characters or anything like that. Could be wrong. We don't know the full roster at this point, but I would say that it's probably unlikely. Or if they do, I could also see that being DLC
Yeah,
because you
I
could
was just gonna say.
charge for that and be like, oh, here's the Final Fantasy VII DLC for $10.
20.
You know, here's the Final Fantasy VIII DLC, the Final Fantasy, like you can go through every Final Fantasy, just adding the main cast for $10-15, and I'm sure you'd get it.
100%. The other one too that got announced for the Switch is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That's set to come out on November 11th. This is not to be confused with the remake that they're coming out with, but this is the classic one in case you never had an Xbox or a PC to play that old title, which is by many consider it the best Star Wars game.
Yeah, it's a really fun one. I only ever played a little bit of it, but I have watched multiple speedruns, let's plays, stuff like that of it, and I'm very excited to finally pick it up. I was kind of hoping that they would just do 1 and 2, maybe not quite as a bundle because I'm sure they're going to want to get the money from both. But I'm surprised they didn't announce both of them as like 2 separate purchases. Like, hey, $40 each. Here's KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2. Since again, they're just both a port. They're not doing anything special to it.
Right. The other major collection is all Castlevania. They're calling it the Castlevania Advance Collection. It brings together 4 classic games: The Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, and Dracula X, with the beautiful graphics that it used to have, all of the awesome music. These are games that really, in my opinion, they pushed the Game Boy Advance and into what it could do. And I know that it was on the same level as Super NES, but to me, this also combined 3D effects to really bring the world of Castlevania to life. They're not games that I personally played, but I watched a ton of gameplay. I saw a lot of people play all of these. They look like artwork, really. Like, these games do look beautiful for their time.
They're absolutely great. They're 3 of the best Castlevanias, and then 1 kind of okay Castlevania.
Which one is that?
Yeah, the Rondo of Blood.
Gotcha.
Like the Harmony Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, and Circle of the Moon are 3 really fantastic games. Aria of Sorrow is probably one of the best Castlevanias ever made, including its sequel, which was for the DS, which I'm hoping to see a DS collection as well at some point, where we'll get the DS games. I'm also wondering if we'll get the N64 games through the online service, because I know someone was talking to me about that, and they were wondering, like, oh, are they going to do a bundle with the N64 games? I'm like, why? They can just put them on the service and get it like that, because they're notoriously bad, and they are really bad. So I don't think most people would pay $20-$30 for those 2 games. I know we're talking about the Nintendo Direct, but these games are available for Steam, PS4, and Xbox as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. The Advanced Collection?
Yeah. The Advanced Collection is available for all major systems.
Interesting.
It was just announced at the Nintendo Direct, but it is available for everything. I'll end up picking it up on PS4 personally, so I can get trophies, but...
Are they calling it the Advanced Collection on those as well?
It is still considered the Advanced Collection.
What an era we live in. I don't know why that's so weird to me. I think it's because I grew up during the time where console wars were really a thing, but now you can have collections that are named after a competitor's system and release it on your own. It's kind of crazy.
Well, yeah. It reminds me of like the Mega Man Zero collection when that came out. That was 4 Game Boy Advance games and 2 DS games that were just on every major console.
So bizarre.
Yeah, I'm playing a DS game on a PS4. That's just weird in concept.
All news to me. You're blowing my mind here.
Yeah. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's, I believe, $39.99, which, so you're talking about $10 a game. Right. Not a bad price. I've heard one person complain, but I personally think that $40 is a perfectly fair price for those 4 games, especially considering the price they go for on a secondary market, like the actual cartridges. They are very pricey.
What was the last bit of Nintendo Direct news that they had?
So they also did reveal that they will be showing off the final Smash Ultimate character on October 5th, I believe is when that is happening. So, and that will finish up Season Pass 2, which will be the final Season Pass, squashing any rumors of a Season Pass 3 that might have been going on, which I think most people assumed there would be a Season Pass 3 after they made a Season Pass 2, since the first Season Pass was supposed to be it. So it seemed logical to just go, okay, well, yeah, sure, this is how they're going to just pad out Smash Ultimate. Instead of making a new game, just keep tossing out Season Passes. But no, it does look like this will be the end of that one. And then I do also have a few other games from the Nintendo Direct just to kind of touch on,
if
you don't mind. So we saw a little bit more of Rune Factory 5, which is a game I'm super excited for, and we'll be picking up day 1, which if you've never played before, it's Harvest Moon, but you also travel through dungeons, killing things, and having a hack and slash RPG adventure in the meantime. Like, you're also growing a farm and starting a family, but you're also going into dungeons, going through this entire story by killing monsters and ridding the land of monsters, and selling stuff that you gain in the marketplace as your own shops to start like that and have inventory. So it's really fun.
I'm going to have to tell Kelly about that one. I know she's mainly interested in the love story portions and starting a family and all that, but so I don't know if the action bits will get her, but I'm going to tell her about this one.
Mostly ignore the action bits, and like, it's very much you can just farm and, like, you know, get along with people and marry them and all that.
All right.
But yeah, Rune Factory 5 is fantastic. Is going to be fantastic. Rune Factory 4 is what got me into it, which is available also on Switch as Rune Factory 4 Special. So that's a really fun one. Disney's Magic World 2 I'm also really excited for. I'm probably the only person in existence excited for that game.
Then why did they make it?
That's a port of the 3DS game, and it was basically, do you want Animal Crossing but with Disney characters? There you go. With also some action RPG elements. That's Disney's Magical World. Like, you talk to Disney characters, you go through some dungeons, which it's like top-down third-person shooter, and then that's it. You meet up with more Disney characters and have fun. Also, Mario Golf Super Rush. They are doing free DLC for that game, and it's nice to see that they are still doing free DLC and not a season pass for that. So it'll be introducing, I believe, 2 new golfers, 2 or 3 new courses. One of the new golfers is Koopa Troopa. I know that one off the top of my head. But yeah,
he's
it's
a pretty
really
popular
cool.
character, yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice that it's free. It's just, do you have the game? Great. Update it. Here you go. Another big one that I'm excited for is Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Of course. Yeah.
Showed off
To anyone
gameplay of that.
unfamiliar, he's a huge fan of the Shin Megami series.
Series, but they showed that off, and then today, the day of recording, we just saw the English trailer for the first time with the English voice acting. They revealed all of the English voice actors today, and it's okay. I'll be playing the game in Japanese no matter
That was
what.
my next question. Yeah.
But they did a good job. I don't think they did a bad job with the dub. So if you're that type of person that wants to just listen to the dub, I think you'll still get a good portion of, I think you'll still enjoy the game. There also is the new ActRaiser remaster. So that was
that one.
That was a very cult classic SNES game, where it was kind of like Civilization, where you would do or SimCity, and you would do make cities and stuff like that, and then you'd also go down and do an action adventure game to rid the area of evil.
That sounds pretty cool.
Very interesting game. It got 2 games on the SNES, but it kind of went away, and I was never expecting a remaster remake of it. And that one is also available on every system, not just Switch.
That's so funny that all these games that are like, I never expected a remake of that. I'm probably the only person that's excited for this. And they're like, well, we're spending money to make it. And again, it's like, why?
Well, yeah, I don't know why, but I'm hoping that it does well enough. Like, because I'm going to support it.
Yeah.
The last one I guess I wanted to mention is going to be the Hot Wheels Unleashed, because the game actually is pretty decent compared,
Really?
like, considering it's just a Hot Wheels game. I know a friend of both of ours, Omni Jam. You can find him on Twitch, but because he'll actually be streaming that Saturday.
So this
He's
released
been
already.
it released early. If you pre-ordered, you could play
Gotcha.
it 3 days. So he's been playing a little bit of that, and he's like, it's Mario Kart, but with different things to kind of make it Hot Wheels. Like, you can fly off the track. There's random spots that will speed you up and stuff like that because it's Hot Wheels. So it's really kind of a cool concept, and it's apparently way better than a Hot Wheels game has any right to be.
Right.
Wheels. But yeah, I've been seeing quite a bit of that because of it, and it looks pretty fun.
All right. Well, good on Hot Wheels. Like, good on them.
They followed that Mario Kart formula and threw in a little few twists and turns and made a really good kart racing game.
Well, with you saying they're flying in the tracks and stuff, I'm thinking Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, like, it could be a little bit like that. Like, there's all kinds of stuff, and it definitely took inspiration from a lot of the old school kart racers. Because Diddy Kong Racing was another one of those old school kart racers that I would love to see on that N64 collection.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Another rare, magical type of agreement that they can hopefully come together on. Because I remember liking, I don't know, maybe I was a weird kid, but I liked Diddy Kong Racing more than Mario Kart 64. And maybe it's because that's the one I owned. But when I played Mario Kart 64, I'm like, all right, but you can't fly in this. Where's the swimming portions and all that?
Like, there was like the hovercraft and the planes and everything else. Plus, there was like a full story mode.
Yes. You race
I mean,
like big beasts and shit.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest story mode, but it was a story mode. Like, that was more than Mario Kart had. Mario Kart was just, yeah, it's a bunch of tracks, go through it, and that's it. Like, most of my Mario Kart nostalgia is from playing with friends. The battle mode and stuff like that, not necessarily the racing.
Yeah. One of the neat tie-ins to Star Fox is the Triceratops in Diddy Kong Racing. There's a small version of him in Star Fox Adventures, which were both made by Rare. So I always thought that was a neat connection when someone pointed it out, I think in Nintendo Power.
That's pretty cool. I never even thought about that connection. But yeah, it makes total sense.
So in my headcanon, that's just, I think his name was Trixie or Tricky, I forgot, but when he grows up, he ends up on Diddy Kong Island or whatever, racing little racers and shit.
Somehow he got over there. Now we just need like the comic book adaptation of how he got over there.
Well, out of this whole thing with the Nintendo Direct, we're going to have the Smash Brothers Ultimate Character reveal next week, and we'll see what it ends up being. But what would you say was your favorite part of this Direct?
That one's a hard one because, like, there was a lot of surprises, which I loved. I wasn't expecting the Castlevania Advance Collection. I wasn't expecting Chocobo GP. I wasn't expecting Bayonetta 3. I didn't expect Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Disney's Magical World. Like, KOTOR. There were certain games that I expected, like Shin Megami Tensei 5, Rune Factory 5 I actually expected as well. But those ones were like, holy crap. And that was just one of the big things to me. And that's kind of what stood out. The N64 expansion, for Nintendo Online was always rumored, but we weren't sure. I mean, because GameCube and Game Boy Advance was also rumored for it, which at this point, who knows? They might be coming down the path.
Right.
If I had to pick one, though, it would probably be, I still can't narrow it down to one. It's going to be between Kirby and the Castlevania Advance Collection. Like, those were the two biggest surprises for me that I'm super excited for.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad you're excited for the Castlevania collection as much as you are. I'm kind of surprised at that, but that's great. For me, I mean, you heard it already, Bayonetta 3, but there was a lot of great stuff here, a lot of good stuff. And I know if I were gaming as much as I was years ago, that this would be a huge one. Although I might have more time in the future. I'll get into that in the BroCap block. But I'm glad you were on this episode and that it landed perfectly with Nintendo Direct, because who else but an LGG member to cover Nintendo stuff?
Yeah, it kind of worked out super coincidentally, but it was like the perfect timing.
That keeps happening with co-hosts too. Like I don't know. There's some we're hitting the right pattern here, and I'm not gonna mess with it.
Like, yeah, you don't mess with it when it's working like that.
The last part for today's episode, aside from the Bro Kept block, is this month's What's New on HBO Max. These are the October 2021 highlights. So the first one on this list, and if you end up finding some on yours, let me know, but I added just the stuff that I know I've seen that might relate to the podcast, and there's a full list if you want to check online, What's New on HBO Max, October 2021, but here on the podcast, these are just, once again, some of the bigger hitters, and Dune is one that is directed by Denis Villeneuve. This is the new one that is releasing. It's not the 70s one, I believe it was. And they're calling it Dune Part 1, apparently. In the early screenings, they said that on the big screen, it does say Part 1 on there. And Denny is hoping to get a sequel greenlit, depending on how this one does. And supposedly, it's doing well in pre-ticket sales overseas. So hopefully, that's a good sign for more to come on this. And this will also hit, as you obviously, on HBO Max and theaters. So it's going to be one of the last dual releases for the year. Do you have any opinion or thoughts on Dune or any of his previous films?
Not really. Dune didn't look super like it was my type of movie, but I have no issue with it, and I'll probably check it out at some point on HBO Max, since why not? It's right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of my favorite directors currently. So I also have no attachment to the novels or to the old movie, to the board game that apparently came out years ago that they're re-releasing.
I know that there was a board game. I guess a lot of licensed stuff is now getting board games and things like that. So,
well, one of my subscribers at the shop said that he told me that the old Dune board game is getting a re-release, and he's like, it's complicated as shit. But to any of the diehard Dune game players, once they took the time to learn it, and they had a lot of fun with it. I'm like, wow, so there must be some market out there too. Well, if we're ever going to re-release this thing, now's the time.
Yeah, and you know what? As long as they can make a buck off of it and make some fans happy, that's what matters.
That's exactly what matters. One of the old HBO classics, it's considered old now, is The Sopranos, and it's getting a prequel movie, I believe. It's called The Many Saints of Newark. I'm on episode 3 or 4 of The Sopranos. It's one that I never had HBO growing up. And at Blockbuster, they always had the million tapes up there. And I'm like, well, each one's like $5 to $7 to rent. So I'm not going to watch The Sopranos. I'm not watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. But now it's on HBO Max. I can watch these, what's considered by many some of the best shows of all time. And Sopranos is up there. So they are doing The Many Saints of Newark. I feel like I can't watch this until I've gone through all of the seasons of Sopranos, which so far it's pretty good. More of a comedy than I expected, but I'm willing to give it more than its fair try because it is so highly regarded among people.
Yeah, that was one that I've always seen people or heard people talking about and seen people reference, but it just never, I don't know, I was never a mobster type person, like, wanting to watch about mobsters necessarily. Mm-hmm. So it never appealed to me, but I know that people swear by it and say that if you love things like Godfather, you like it and stuff, but I don't know. As far as opinions on that one.
Scorsese's in the first episode. Like, he does a little cameo where he just walks into a club.
Wonder how much they paid for that one little cameo.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty funny because they're all waiting outside. No one's letting him in. And they're like, oh, right over here. Like, he just walks in and they're like, oh, Marty. And they're all waving at him. And he comes in with 2 very young women. Curb Your Enthusiasm, I was just talking about, season 11 is coming on HBO Max. We had last covered it on the podcast when they announced that they were going to do a season 11, I think 2 years ago. Obviously, COVID put a little bit of a pause to the production of this not final season, because Larry said they keep paying what I asked for, and I always ask for more, and they're like, great, make another season. And he's like, all right, I guess we're making another season. And that's literally how he announced season 11. He's like, they keep paying me to do these.
Smart though, to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep raising the price until they eventually say no, and like, all right, that'll be final season.
I'm guessing he's got all that Seinfeld money that he's still making. He probably doesn't even have to do these.
No, that's probably why he just keeps raising up. He's hoping like they stop. It's like, oh no, we can't afford that. Finally, like, I'm free.
One of the nice things is he does do these seasons with friends. So I'm sure that makes it a lot easier for him where it's like, all right, well, they're going to pay me millions to film a show with all my friends. Great. Done. And you can tell when you watch the seasons. I don't know if you've ever seen Curb, but there's takes where I'm like, Larry's breaking character and cracking up, and they just keep it in there.
I always like when they do that for a show though, where it's like, yeah, when they start cracking up, you just keep going with it.
Yes.
Because it's very, like, it's just, that's what happened.
I got to talk to Maceo when he comes back on because I'm excited for season 11. I know he's a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm more than Seinfeld. Curb is definitely his thing, and I like both of them. Last week we had talked about Aquaman, King of Atlantis, and how Matt and I were, or that was actually, Matt, 2 weeks ago was Matt and I when we were talking about that. Last week was Nick. But Matt and I both agreed that Aquaman, King of Atlantis wasn't really our thing. It's by the same makers as that new Thundercats show that they tried to do, and this kind of has the same art style. I don't know if you saw any trailers to King of Atlantis, but
I've seen the stills, like
Yeah.
the screenshots of like the covers and stuff, and some of the scenes, and it definitely was not for me. I can tell you that much from those. Like,
I'm with you right there. I'm guessing if you have got kids, maybe this will be up your alley, but otherwise, I'm personally going to pass on it. Also, Bad Boys 1 and 2, those I think are Michael Bay films, and I saw the first one. I haven't seen the second one. I like the first one, but I know people really like these.
I loved Bad Boys 1 and 2. I still haven't seen Bad Boys for Life yet. I'm hoping that'll come up soon since, we're getting Bad Boys 1 and 2 on there, but it'll be really fun rewatching those.
Another one is Beverly Hills Cop 1 through 3. I saw the first one, another one that I really enjoyed with Eddie Murphy, but for some reason I hadn't seen the sequels, but now I got my chance. I can check them out.
I'm kind of the opposite, weirdly enough. I started watching with number 2, and I watched 2 and 3, but never got around to 1. It was like a marathon on TV, so I came in right as they were starting number 2. So I watched number 2, and then number 3 was on right after, and they didn't replay number 1, so it was just, okay, well...
That's the Scott watch order. You know how they have the Star Wars watch order? This is the Scott. Watch 2 and 3, never watch 1.
And then 1. No, you go back to 1 afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Makes more sense that way, canonically.
Right. Clearly, it does.
Yeah.
Another weird one, I guess, if people want to see, I heard it wasn't good, and I know it got a lot of flack online because of the special effects, but the recent Cats movie, it's got a hell of a bunch of talent in there. It was an expensive movie to make, but there's this whole thing about the butthole cut that they were talking about and some of the fixes that they did.
Like, part of me wants the butthole cut to exist just because I think it'd be funnier. But yeah, for all the talent it had, like, I just could not give a crap.
One of my favorite movies, I would probably easily put it in my top 20, is a movie called Doubt. And this one is a must-see, in my opinion. It stars Meryl Streep. It's also got the late Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. It also has Viola Davis as well. So you've got incredible talent in here. It was nominated for several awards. And it was my favorite movie of that year, which I think was 2008. But it's based on a play, from what I remember, of the basic gist of it is you're following Meryl Streep's character who is fighting to retain the old ways of the parish and to really retain all of that. But then this new priest comes in, which is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is the opposite of what she's used to. He doesn't cut his nails. He smokes. He gets along with the kids a lot and a little too closely, to the point where she starts suspecting that maybe he is sexually abusing some of these boys, and that's when she's trying to figure that out. But then Amy Adams, also another incredible actor, is in it, and she's a younger nun that's like, I think you're just threatened by his new ways, and she's like, no, I think he's touching kids. But it's kind of playing with that idea of, is he really, or is she just trying to destroy what's new and coming and all of this. So it's absolutely incredible. I love this movie. I highly recommend it to anyone because it's got amazing actors. The story is good, and that's really all you need. It's a good, really good movie.
Sounds like it.
Family Matters apparently left Hulu, I think is what it was on, but now it's going to be on HBO Max, and that's some shit I grew up on. I'm going to watch Family Matters. I'm
super excited to rewatch that series because I haven't seen it since, the late 90s, early 2000s. Because, you watch it when it's live and then you watch reruns. Like I loved it as a kid. Just would watch. It was one of those sitcoms I watched a lot growing up. I grew up on a lot of different sitcoms.
If they get the Jeffersons on here too, man, that's like my childhood too, right there.
I would be watching that. I mean, I watched like Different Strokes back in the day. That was another one. Full House, which I saw was
Yes.
also on there for the month. So I might rewatch that. Home Improvement, which I've actually been rewatching with my parents because it comes on a TV channel now.
That was never my jam. I don't know why. I could never really get into it. It was in that weird block. I was more of a Wonder Years during that period, Wonder Years, and
I never really watched much Wonder Years.
oh, I love that one, and Brady Bunch because it came on like right afterward.
I watched Brady Bunch as a kid. Like that was one of those ones.
I'm
Like there was
glad-
a lot of great sitcoms during that time period.
There really were. It seems like the age of sitcoms has changed, and it's very different than it was. But that's the kind of the nice thing is people will have their own version of Family Matters today that they can enjoy, and we've got Family Matters we can enjoy next month on HBO Max. So we're winning.
Thing. Like as long as both are available, it's a good thing.
Another one on this list, another great film is Gangs of New York. This is a Martin Scorsese one, famously known for Daniel Day-Lewis, who is a method actor. He got pneumonia while filming the movie, and because he's a method actor, he wouldn't treat it because he said back in those days they didn't have the type of treatment we have today. So when you see him in the movie, for some of those scenes, he is suffering from pneumonia and he's acting through it. And he played the character. Apparently, he acted as the character in between takes, which I'm sure was annoying for some of the actors. But if you want to see some craziness, literally, you check out Gangs of New York. Couple more on this list is Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. Are you a Tarantino fan?
So I have seen both Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. Loved them back when I watched them. I was probably 17, 18 when I watched them.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, they were great. The action scenes were great. The story was fun.
Have you seen any of his other ones like Pulp Fiction, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I have seen parts of Pulp Fiction. I've never actually seen the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I have not seen.
I'm going to have to let you borrow that one.
First experience with them and kind of the one that stuck out the most for me.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time is one of my favorite. It is my favorite Tarantino film, but it's also like Quickly Climbing is one of my favorites in like hitting my top 20. It's just really good. It's really rewatchable. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio are amazing. So I got to let you borrow that one. I think you'd enjoy it.
I'll have to check it out because, yeah.
Also on this list is one that has the different generations of DC fans that they kind of answered this one and they made it into a movie, and it's Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans. This one was on HBO Max for a while and now it's back on there. And this is literally what it sounds like. It's got the older Teen Titans, and when I say older, I mean the older cartoon, not the classic George Perez run, which is how I troll some of these teenagers that are like, I want the old Teen Titans comic, but not the Teen Titans Go crap, the classics. And I'm like, oh, here you go. Then I show them George Perez's run, and they're like, oh.
It's like, oh, that is a weird looking Starfire. And
right.
It's like, this is not the same thing. It's like, no, that is not what you're thinking of either. It's not the classic. Yeah. Like that is the original classic.
Teen Titans Go's team knows that they weren't going to have that same old fan base, even though it's the same voice actors and the show is incredibly clever. It's funny. It's animated well. Dan Hipp is one of my favorite comic artists when he does the covers, and he worked on a lot of the designs, the backgrounds for for Teen Titans Go. So when they had that even in the show itself, they make fun of the older fan base that are like, well, they're not going to watch our show anyway, so who gives a shit? So one of the villains they make is literally that old fan base, like, no, I want the old, cooler, darker Teen Titans, and they literally put that fan in the show, which is kind of funny. But this movie itself is more, I guess, respectful of it. They bring back the older Titans, and they also do a multiverse of Titans. So it's really a celebration of the teams as they explore the ones that they already had in Teen Titans Go and also ones that you might recognize from the comics. It's a cool movie. I do recommend it if you're a fan of either Go or the older ones.
Yeah, I actually still need to check it out. I do own it on DVD. I just haven't gotten around to it, and now I don't have to pop in the disc. Because,
There you
I
go.
bought it. It was cheap, and I like Teen Titans Go to the movies. I
Yes.
thought that was a fantastic movie. A lot of dark humor.
Yes.
I actually saw a meme recently that took advantage of that dark humor from it. Because I'm sure people have seen the meme where it's like, this is the alley where my parents died with Batman. And it's just Robin going, yeah, I know, I put him there. Like,
Don't they literally
it's
push the Waynes into the alley?
push them in. Because at first they save them, and it's like, oh, you have to reset the timeline. All right, and they just shove them in there. Or
So
when
terrible.
they just like throw the little plastic can holder things in the ocean. You just see like baby Aquaman tangled up in it dying.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
It's dark, but I died laughing. Like I had to pause.
Another one on the list here is the more recent The Invisible Man. So this one is basically this exists because I think it was called like the Dark Universe is what they called it of the Universal Monsters.
The Mummy. Oh, it started with the Mummy.
Yeah.
They were supposed to all be connected.
And apparently it ended with them setting up more characters in the Universal Monsters set, but it ended up not doing well, and which is unfortunate. But I also didn't see the Mummy, so who knows? So instead, they went into this different direction where the Invisible Man is its own thing. It's no longer. I think Johnny Depp was the one who was cast originally, but this sounds like it's a completely different screenplay, and it is more of a suspense thriller than whatever it was that they were going for. And I heard pretty good things about it, so I didn't catch it in theaters, but I'm glad I can check it out on HBO Max.
Yeah, it might be worth the watch just because, it is kind of connected in a small way to the other one. Just to kind of see if there was any remnants of it. And plus, I don't know, the last Invisible Man movie I remember was Hollow Man.
I used to watch that as a teen.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to see if maybe this one's a bit better.
Kevin Bacon running around being evil and doing shit to women. And
yeah.
I never knew if that was just him or if that was the serum that was fucking him up, because they said it would drive him to insanity or whatever. So,
see, you're not quite sure because he doesn't start doing it immediately. It's just as it like goes on, he starts getting worse and worse with it.
Right. It's almost as if these were, because he hinted at liking some of these people, but maybe it just got out of control once he got that serum in him. Like it brought out the inner urges for him.
Yeah, and kind of enhanced those urges or whatever, and kind of prevented him from stopping them at that point.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any of that in The Invisible Man because it was a 2020 flick. But I'll check it out. We'll see.
Find out.
For any Tim Burton fans, Corpse Bride is going to be hitting HBO Max. It is a stop motion movie. I don't think it was as good as Nightmare Before Christmas, but he also did not direct Nightmare Before Christmas. He did Corpse Bride. The aesthetics great. The character designs are awesome, but I personally wasn't too crazy about Corpse Bride.
It was one I always skipped anyway. It looks great and it's impressive from a technical standpoint, but it just never appealed to me as a movie.
Two more on this list, Up in the Air. This one stars George Clooney, and they have like some of my favorite movies on here, I swear. It's one I bought on Blu-ray. I rewatch it every now and again. Have you heard of this one?
I have not, in all honesty.
So it does star George Clooney, in which he plays a man who flies around firing people. That's literally it's a company that he works for, a company that is hired by other companies to go in and fire people and give them a packet of here's reemployment options, or if they're too old and they're going to retire, here's retirement options. They hire him to smooth over people that get fired, especially when it's a company wide, like we need to shut down 50% of these employees. And that's what he does. And that's kind of the premise, but he ends up falling in a relationship with someone, and he kind of learns that he needs to be more attached to people and to his family and to people he works with. So it's this little bit of a journey for George Clooney's character, and I don't know, I'm attached to airports. Like, I really like flying, and that's what initially got me into theaters when I first saw this many years ago. I think I was in high school, and I really enjoyed it. It's not your typical type of movie where you're going to have the character tropes or anything like that. It's very unique in its own way, and he does an amazing job in the movie. I do recommend Up in the Air.
Well, it's free on HBO Max, so I mean, there's not really a reason not to.
One of the biggest movies this year was The Conjuring, and the final one, or at least the latest one, called The Devil Made Me Do It, is going back on HBO Max. It was another one of those dual releases that came out this year. The Conjuring series, man, it's so fucking big. It doesn't die, and good for them.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's gone on this long. I've never really watched any of them. I don't do a lot of supernatural horror. I like slasher movies. Like, The Conjuring has gone on for years at this point. Like, I want to say over 10 years, easily, since the first Conjuring. And I don't know if they ever expected it to go on for that long.
And it's funny because James Wan did, I believe, the first couple, or at least produced them. And it did this universe building that was really interesting, because it's like, all right, The Conjuring, Annabelle, and The Conjuring this, but they feature some of the same characters throughout all of these, even though they're different cases, and they have their own timelines too. Some of them are prequels, and like The Nun takes place during this period, and they really have this own little universe that makes so much box office. It has its audience. And I think it is because we don't have modern slasher movies. Now, more recently, we got Candyman. We're about to get the Halloween film. But up until then, the horror market has really gone, in my opinion, has been underserved. And now the Conjuring films have kind of filled in that gap for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's good horror. Like, they are very well done movies. And to your point, they've got this own little universe. Like, they've got their own little Conjuring cinematic universe.
Yep.
They stick to it. I don't know if it was fully intentional from the very beginning, or if they kind of just realized, like, well, we'll throw some hints at some other stuff just in case, that it's popular enough. But it works. Like, and it makes money.
I'm going to start seeing them, because there's got to be something to them. It's going to end up being like the Fast and Furious movies, where I'm like, there's 9 of these now. I've got to see them all, and I'm going to go through them all. And they always kind of advertise it like based on a true story. And you can obviously put that for almost anything, but
are you going to watch them in chronological order or release order? So that's the other thing.
Well, I'd have to find out what the Scott order is, and I'd have to consult with you and see.
Start with whatever the newest one that just came out is. And then you can watch probably like the third one, and then maybe the fifth one.
I got to find which channel is doing a marathon of them, and then just catch whatever I'm watching, and then just finish them off.
Channel will do a marathon. Well, you'd probably have to wait till closer to Halloween.
True. TNT would probably do it.
Yeah, TNT. I think True TV sometimes does it. I do have 2 movies to add to that list, both of which have been on HBO Max before, but they're returning. One of them is The Perfect Storm. I think that was a fantastic movie.
Is that the ocean one with the ship?
Yes, it's based on a true story about some fishermen that went out and stuff like that, and 2 hurricanes were basically coming together and colliding, and they got caught in it.
Did it make a super hurricane, or did they cancel each other out?
It made essentially overall canceled each other out, but for a time period they were colliding into each other, and you just didn't want to be there when it was happening, which unfortunately they were. And of course the movie takes a lot of liberties because no one knows exactly what happened to them, other than they were out there in the course or in the path of the hurricane. There was a few distress signals. Well, one slight distress signal from them, but nothing else.
Holy shit.
Has to kind of take some liberties with what happened to them.
So in real life, they never found them.
No, in real life they are lost at sea.
Oh man.
No one ever saw the ship return. Like, it's, I think, 6 guys that,
that's
they
crazy.
went out to fish. That was it. No one ever saw them again.
I wonder if this takes liberties of like, and they happy ending. They're on an island where they have everything they need.
Oh no. The movie definitely has a concrete, like, you already know the ending. It's just a matter of, so it deals a lot more with the characters and stuff like that, who are based on real people
Gotcha.
and the relationships of a small fishing town in like Maine. So I really thought it was great. I think that one also had George Clooney, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check on that. Yeah, Mark Wahlberg, George Clooney, a few others.
I love
John
that
C. Reilly.
Clooney has really come out as like over the years, over the last 20 years, he's come out as like this top tier actor. You know, someone that started off. I mean, he's been in other stuff before, but like ER really got him up there, and then Batman and Robin. But then since then,
Yeah.
it's like holy shit! Like it's he's a serious actor, and he's there to play. You know, he's very talented.
Yeah, and like you watch some of his movies, even his older stuff, like The Perfect Storm, and you can see that he was already a very talented actor.
Mm-hmm.
The other movie that I recommend is Journey to the Center of the Earth with Brendan Fraser.
Oh yeah. There's been a few of those, but I remember that one.
It's a really fun movie. Is it the most amazing movie? No. But is it classic Brendan Fraser? Yeah. If you like The Mummy or something like that, you're probably gonna like this. It's based on the story of, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and it actually starts its own cinematic universe.
Really?
That unfortunately only had 2 movies, because it's basically the concept is that I forgot the name of the author that did Journey to the Center of the Earth off the top of my head, but that his stories were their own actual real life things.
Okay.
So the first movie is Journey to the Center of the Earth. The second movie is The Mysterious Island with The Rock, also a good movie. And that is based on another book from the same author, and it takes place about 2 or 3 years later after the Brendan Fraser one.
And I'm guessing Brendan shows up in that one?
No, he's missing in that one.
So that's how they connected him.
It has the son character. So like he has like a son or something like that. No, nephew. Sorry, nephew. In the first movie, It's him and his nephew. The nephew returns for the second movie, along with his new adopted father, like his new father-in-law, or what stepfather, which is The Rock. The aunt, the sister of Brendan Fraser, is in the second movie along with the nephew, but Brendan Fraser is not in that one, or in the second one.
I never knew they were connected. They don't even share a title, from what I can tell.
Yeah, but they completely are, and they were setting up a third one as well, but it just never. Neither one of them did amazing financially, so.
Well, that would explain that.
Really good powerhouse action actors. I mean, because Brendan Fraser was very popular at the time as an action actor.
Mm-hmm.
And The Rock, who we all know is a very good action comedy actors, I should say. But yeah, both of them great movies, but Journey to the Center of the Earth is coming back on there, and I highly recommend giving it a watch if you like action movies.
So a lot of great stuff coming on HBO Max next month. Some recommendations from Scott and myself. A lot of homework. So if you got some free time, there's some great stuff hitting HBO Max this coming month. As I mentioned, next week we will cover Netflix. But outside of that, we can jump into our final portion of today's episode, and that is the Brokehead Block, which is what Scott and I have been doing this week. So Scott, what have you been doing this week? What have you been playing or reading or watching?
So I watched so far about 3 things. 2 on HBO Max and 1 on Disney Plus. So I'll start with the HBO Max stuff. I watched Scary Movie 1 and 2 again.
Yeah, you were trying to catch them before they left.
Leaving the 30th of September, so right before October. And just don't. Especially the first one it did not age well.
Oh no.
There's some great jokes in it, and both of them are the same way in my opinion. There's a lot of hits or misses. In case you didn't know, they were both directed by the Wayans brothers and star the Wayans brothers, and it's very classic Wayans brothers comedy writing and stuff like that, where there's a lot of hits and a lot of misses. And I think in your memories, you remember the hits, you forget about the misses.
Yeah.
But watching the movie again, you're like, man, there's a lot of jokes that just go over like a lead balloon. And the plot really doesn't make a lot of sense. Because in the first movie, only one of the main cast survives. And in the second movie, it's the entire same main cast, just back again, as if nothing happened. And I'm just like, wait, what? I need continuity. Like, how are they back? I was told I should ignore continuity, but like, no.
One thing I remember about the Scary Movie films, and now that you bring up like some of the jokes that don't age well, is they did do modern pop culture references in the films, like in the sequel where they have the wheelchair guy like spinning around, and that was all based on a commercial that was popular at the time. But if you have no reference to it, you're just like, okay, like what's that mean?
Yeah, some of them it's like, I was alive during that time period, but even I'm having issues remembering like, oh yeah, that was based on that thing. Because like there's also a scene where they find like a basketball and stuff, and that was like an old either Nike or Air Jordan commercial.
Yeah.
Where it's like a dark room and they're playing basketball, and it's like, but okay, I vaguely have like recollections of it. If you didn't know anything about that, you have no clue.
Or the scene with the parrot where he says, "You are the weakest link, goodbye." No one fucking knows that show. That was popular for like 6 months.
Yeah, it was popular in Britain a little bit longer, but even then, like maybe a year. There's a lot of, to your point, pop culture jokes, and that's kind of part of the issue. A lot of the hits were some of the timeless jokes. Like I still love the whole Exorcist scene from the beginning of Scary Movie 2.
Yes.
I love where it's like, Father, it's the child or whatever, and he's like, oh, well, sometimes you have to give them candy first. It's just like there's a lot of messed up jokes. I forgot Tim Curry was even in Scary Movie 2.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was watching it and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize Tim Curry was in this.
And I think there's a Hollow Man reference in that sequel too, isn't there?
Yeah, there's all kinds of references in that one. But yes, there is a Hollow Man reference in that sequel with where like the ghost is up on the pipes and they shoot
that's right.
towards the pipes. The first movie is mostly based on Scream, and then the second movie is mostly based on a lot of the supernatural movie or horror movies that were out at the time, like Exorcist and things of that nature.
House on Haunted Hill. I remember that being a big one.
That was a big one. Hollow Man was one of them, obviously, from what we mentioned earlier, but it was a lot more of the supernatural elements versus the first one was a lot more of the slasher movie cliches.
Yeah.
The third movie I haven't rewatched yet. I'm going to rewatch it tonight. But that one's based more on like Signs and a lot of the alien type of movies that were out at the time. And that one's also not a Wayans Brothers movie. That was when the Wayans Brothers were done with it.
Yeah, they're not even in it, right?
No.
Okay.
So I watched those, and then I watched on Disney Plus. I started watching Star Wars Visions, which is basically if you gave a bunch of anime studios free reign to make Star Wars shorts. Very similar to Animatrix or Halo had a same type of thing.
Yeah, my coworker put that on at the shop, and I was kind of catching a little bit of it, and I was like, "They're doing some crazy shit in this," and I'm like, So what Jedi is that?" And he's like, "No, they're not anyone." And I'm like, "Well, does that take place?" And he's like, "None of this is canon." And I'm like, "Doesn't that piss off Star Wars fans though? Don't they need everything to be canon?"
No. I'll get to what's pissing off the Star Wars fans.
Okay, great.
But so I've watched 3 of the 9 episodes. Fantastic. So far, the Duel episode 1 is my favorite. Both the art style, it's a very just black and white art style, very ink blotty, with like certain colors are in color, specifically blue and red are in color, and it's just a fantastic story, and it's like set in like a Star Wars feudal Japan, where the dude's a samurai, so he actually like unsheaths his lightsaber. To fight, and it's actually getting a sequel novel because it did well. So they've already announced a sequel novel coming out for it, so I'm looking forward to that. But what's pissing off the Star Wars fans is that it's too Japanese.
Like, wasn't Star Wars inspired by old Japanese movies?
Yeah, it was inspired by samurai movies.
There you go.
Even like Darth Vader's helmet is a reference to Japanese kabutos from samurai. But yeah, that is what's pissing off the Star Wars fan base, is that they're like, oh, it's all Japanese. Like, it's just too Japanese. What are they doing to our series?
We could use a little bit of Japanese, but not this much. It's a little overload. Yeah.
How dare these Japanese anime companies make something Japanesey? The nerve of them.
That's interesting. That's not what I expected them to get upset about.
Either, but that's everything I've been seeing is like the fan base, the portion of the fan base that gets upset at things. That's what they're upset about.
So Generation 1.
Yeah. Is that they're very upset that it's too Japanese. And I should also note that I've been watching it in Japanese with English subtitles. Like,
of course.
I have no knowledge of the dub outside of the commercials that I saw on TV. The second episode of Star Wars Visions is an okay little episode. Features Boba Fett and even Jabba the Hutt. And it's about a band. That's it. It's a fun one. Decent music. And then the third one that I've seen is by Trigger, one of my favorite anime companies. It's got some great visuals, but the story I thought was kind of the weakest out of the three I've watched.
Is that with the one with the female Sith?
Yeah, it's twin Siths.
Okay.
Sister. And they were born of the dark side. And like the brother decides like he doesn't want to do this because it means the death of his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had a vision that she was going to die doing, like, you know, firing off this mega weapon. So he was like, nope. And they clash about that.
That's the one I saw the most of, where he's like using the Force to pull a Kaiba crystal or something, and I'm like, this is super anime right here.
That's before he like freaking uses a lightsaber to cut a fucking Star Destroyer in half.
I saw that part too. Yep.
Yeah, with the hyperspace engines. Like, it was fantastic, but it was super anime, and it was Trigger. That's Trigger does over the top.
Mm-hmm.
They did series like Kill La Kill or Gurren Lagann. So that's their style. Their style is very much very pretty visuals with a lot of bright colors, and then over the top style. That's very over the top animations with how characters move. They move very fluidly, but they also move very overly moved, if that makes, like, it's hard to describe. It's a very unique style, and I love it. The story I thought was the weakest out of the three.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing, is catching up on some of that stuff.
On my end, I've been catching up on some more of what's on my list on Netflix and on HBO Max. The main thing I've been doing too is with Leo. I got to see him for the first time play Pee Wee soccer, so that was great. Just nice. Seeing, little 3 and 4 year olds run around, and they each have their soccer ball and they're learning the fundamentals, and he seems to be enjoying it. So until he either doesn't enjoy it anymore or wants to try something else, then we'll do something else. But it gets him out there playing and getting around other kids and establishing, getting a little exercise and getting outside. So that's something that we've been I didn't have those opportunities at that age. So I'm trying to, take advantage of that, since we are in that stage of life where we can have, things like him going out to play soccer and all that. So that's been really rewarding to watch. And then I've been doing a lot of planning on outside of what I'm doing for the show, and obviously the podcast awards are coming up, and we're still not sure what the results are, but we'll know by next week. So that's been kind of exciting to look forward to. But this is something that you don't know about, but this just happened yesterday, but I ended up putting in my 2 weeks notice at the shop yesterday. So I'll be moving on from that, and I have no plan. It's just a matter of burnout from the industry. You've heard it on the podcast. People have heard it on here. Bobby is going through something similar too, with all the shit that he's gone through with Pokemon and the card game, the industry, distribution. Yeah,
it's been rough on a lot of, like, on both kinds of your businesses, like both sides.
Yeah, and I get it's hard everywhere, and I totally get that. But for me, it's been so many years of retail that I'm like, all right, I think I've reached the tipping point. So I was trying to go through the holidays, my plan, and this is not something that I told anyone. I think maybe just Kelly, but I was like, let me make it through the holidays, and then we'll see what happens early next year. But it just, it became too much at once. Too many changes, too many errors in the industry, and I was just kind of like, all right, I think this is it. Like I've got to stop. So for my own well-being, mental health, whatever it may be, Kelly has seen it. My worst days at work, and it affects my time at home and all of that. So I was like, all right, that's it. The store's going to be in good hands. It'll take a while for them. I'm excited to see what they shape it out into. I put a lot of myself into the store, and I'm really proud of it. But I'll still be a customer at it. It is my favorite local shop, and I know the people there, obviously. So, but it was time. I wasn't fit for it anymore, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you'll move on to better things and bigger things. It'll work out.
Yeah, I currently don't have a plan, but I have about a month to figure it out. And there's a lot of opportunities. I picked up a lot of skills during my years at the comic shop. So I can look into social media relations. There's all this is like the time to find a job, or to reshape your career, because everyone is fucking hiring. So it's kind of a blessing in that way, where I have this option of, let me try this. All right, let me go try this. And it's going to be, yeah, you're right. It's going to be better. Things were not going to get better anytime soon. So this was the path that I'm choosing to take. And it's exciting because I will have, like I mentioned, about 3-4 weeks to figure it out, to get my stuff in place, get my resume going. And I honestly want to try to mess around with a little bit more of the podcast, maybe do a little bit of streaming, and just see how that goes. See if I can maintain that schedule for a little bit, just to have some fun before I get back into a regular work schedule. And when I go back to work, I don't know if I'll go full time. Maybe I'll go part-time for now. And I'm not too sure, but let's see what happens over the next month and what I can do from the streaming, from the podcast, and from this new gig, whatever it may be, and see where that goes. This doesn't affect the podcast, obviously, because I love comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. That's still stuff that I enjoy. It didn't affect it that much, the industry. So kind of a big deal, I guess, but that's been a major change for me, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the changes.
Yeah, and I'm happy for you that, you'll be a little bit happier from it, that you won't be having to deal with as much of that. Like I said, I'm sure it'll all work out fine. I think I speak for all of the fan base when I say we're wishing you luck moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's exciting, and there's so much that I could be trying out. So it's a little overwhelming, but I'm not, and there's a little bit of fear too, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And I know I will find something, no problem, if I get desperate. There's always places to go.
Well, and especially right now.
Yeah, and I've heard from other brocats that have been in similar situations, and I don't know if this person wants that out there, but I won't name them, but they are, someone that also recently left their job, and they're like, let me go find something else, because it's tough out there, man. It's really tough. And especially if you've been doing something for years and then it just continuously gets worse, then it's like, all right, you can only take so much. But outside of that, that's pretty much, I think, the Brocat block and the rest of this week's episode. I will ask you a Smash Brothers question in the after credits portion of today's podcast, but otherwise, let them know where they can find you, what you stream, because you do stream every week as Lazy Gaming Guys, where they can find that stream as well.
Yeah, so you can find us on @LazyGamingGuys on Twitter, and there you can find our links to our YouTube channel, which is also Lazy Gaming Guys. We stream every Wednesday at about roughly 10 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And going into October, we will be streaming our spooky games.
Nice.
And some scary games. So we'll be playing through Resident Evil 8, The Village, on stream. And we may also have a day of an old tradition called So Bad It's Scary Halloween, where we play a really terrible game. And you can catch all of our streams that we've ever done on there. You can also find links on our Twitter to the podcast version of our streams as well. So lots of different ways to check us out. We stream again every Wednesday at about 10 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, assuming no technical issues.
Perfect. And there will be links to everywhere you can find Scott and the Lazy Gaming Guys on the description of today's episode. So in case you're driving, you could always come back to this episode, swipe on over to the description, and all the links will be right on there. Scott, I want to thank you again for doing this in addition to your stream. I know, you've got a lot of stuff going on your end too, but I appreciate you taking some time every month or so to be on the show. It makes it fun for me to listen to as a fan of yours and as a fan of Lazy Gaming Guys. And I'm sure and I'm excited that the Brokehead Core can get to know you guys better too. They get to know the guys that I've known for several years. So thank you again.
No problem. It's always fun being on. It's always a joy. Like anytime anyone will have me is a good time.
Awesome. And to you out there, in case you want to represent the Brokehead Core or the podcast, head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com, click on merch, and you will find t-shirts, mugs, pillows, masks, all kinds of different designs, some curated stuff that other artists have made as well that get put on the shop. And all of that helps out the podcast and helps me out, especially now that I'm like, oh, no paycheck coming in a few weeks. So all of that helps at thereasonsimbroke.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Daniel, and all will be well. All right, Scott, so we're recording this pre-Smash Brothers final DLC character reveal. Give me your two characters that you think will be in this final roster, one choice that you think that is your dream choice, and then your choice that you're like, it's probably this, though.
So the dream choice would be the one that's kind of been rumored to be leaked, which would be Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Just as a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, that would be a really cool thing.
So how did this leak? What was the evidence behind it?
No clue. Like, I've just been seeing screenshots and stuff like that.
I was kind of letting you lead that one in, but I do know the answer. And
I haven't looked too deep into it personally.
So what I saw, and I don't know if this confirmed, we talked about this on Discord, where they asked for music files from Kingdom of Hearts to be showcased on an October 5th event, which ended up being, of course, the upcoming Smash Brothers reveal. And there's speculation as to why would they need that music for a Smash Brothers reveal video. So there's a lot of that. Some people still think that it's maybe they're announcing music from that game that will be in Smash Brothers, even though like we can't get Sora, but
because I think some of the costumes have come with music as well.
Yes.
So it could also be that Sora will be announced like as a costume, or a Keyblade will be announced like that. I could see that as well. What's also funny about the whole leak happening was, and I think me and Omni were talking about it in the Discord, about what did Walmart know?
What do you mean?
So for LGG, we have our own private section for us. And Julian was at work, and they played Simple and Clean over the Walmart radio station from Kingdom Hearts. And then the next day, you talked about it leaking that it was Sora. And I'm like, what did Walmart know? Like for the first time ever, they start playing Kingdom Hearts music over the radio, and then Sora gets leaked the next day. Coincidence?
I think not.
But I'm really excited. I hope it is Sora, but it could also very well be costumes, because I'm sure they will be announcing all of that tomorrow, or October 5th as well. So I'm sure it'll be like, oh, here's this costume and this costume and this costume, or, these levels maybe. We'll obviously have to wait and see, but that's my dream one. The more likely one, I'm not sure on that one. Because I know me and you personally have discussed like a Fortnite character.
Yeah.
Because that would be a popular series to kind of latch on to.
Very much like so, yeah.
Where it's like, oh, it's Minecraft. Everyone knows Minecraft. Here's this for the kids. I would also love to see a Fire Emblem character. Just a lot of the fan base.
The only one that I've got is like, it's probably this, aside from Fortnite, because that seems like the obvious one that it's like, yeah, okay, I see why they would pick Fortnite. Maybe like a Master Chief would be one that I'm like, all right, well, another third party character there. But if I had to pick a dream character, I mean, I guess, and he's already an assist trophy. I would love to see Knuckles as a part of it, but they have so many characters already that I'm like, they're amazing. They already have them in there. Greninja, for example, is already in there. That's an amazing Pokemon. I guess I'd want to see another Pokemon. That'd probably be my dream one. I don't care what it is, but just another Pokemon. Maybe I think you had mentioned
Charizard X.
Oh God, I regret already what I said.
Just swaps between Charizard X and Y. There you go.
And it's ultra power. It's the most powerful of all the Pokemon choices, of course.
Well, of course. Or it's just Pikachu. You can also do that.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
No, this is female Pikachu. That one was male Pikachu. See?